francophone last name, it gets very tough to get a decent position in the government. Or you can get like a lower level of a civil servant position, but if you want to move up the ladder, that actually comes into play.
I see.
So it's basically what I call like a reverse racism.
And we are recording. Welcome everyone to Prove to Me That You're Alive Lightcast, the only show in the world that challenges your perception on reality and life and gives you a mental kick in your spiritual gut so you can start gasping for air of information with a brand new enthusiasm, just like you would if you were a little kid. Today I have a super special guest. This man completely blew my mind when I started to look into him. He wrote some eye-opening books, man. The first one was Canada Lost, Symptoms of a Dying Nation. And the second one, which really gave me a kick in the mental gut, was 90 Seconds to Midnight. Why Ukraine can win, but how can we find an exit? And I will leave all the links in the description. By the way, my super special guest today has also started posting videos on his channel, Orwell McLee. I will again leave links in the description. So without further ado, I introduce to you with my great pleasure, Orwell McLee. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this. I found, see, on this show, we really appreciate people that have their own outlook on things, people that actually know what's going on, and people that are not afraid to voice their opinion, and as you did with your books. Orwell, could you please tell us like a little bit about yourself? Maybe where you grew up, or how was your childhood, or a little bit about your journey so we get a better sense of you, man.
Okay, sure. So, I'm a child of an immigrant family. I'm not going to say which country I'm from, but I came to Canada when I was 10, 11 years old. And first, me and my family settled in Toronto for 3, 4 years, and it wasn't really working out, so we moved to the prairies. That's the central region of Canada: Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Those three big provinces. And at that time, the oil economy was booming. It was like a land where milk and honey flows, literally. And we were beneficiary of that economy for many years. And I did my finished my high school and university. I finished my undergrad in one of the three prairie provinces. I won't say which one. And I went to East to study, and like that was circa like 2017. And I mentioned in my book that I was actually very passionate about supporting the Ukrainian causes in my undergrad years. And I brought that to East, and I realized that things were not what I was told by the Ukrainian diaspora. I started questioning and look into it, and I came to the point where I actually put a book together exposing that. Unfortunately, I still respect them and I love them as my friends, but there's some truths that I had to get it out to the world in hope that I can at least make small contribution to having some normalcy coming back to Ukraine and the lands that are affected by the war that's happening in your motherland. Yeah.
Cool. How was your childhood? How would you describe your childhood? Did you have a happy childhood or tough childhood? Like, what was your childhood like?
It's a mix of both. Well, my parents, they're good people. Like they never abused me, and my dad, like, he never even beat me once. So that's a
That's a
huge
good thing.
bonus for me. I know there's like thousands of children out there who grew up in abusive familyhood, but I wasn't. And me being an immigrant, and let's just say that I don't heavily have the majority's appearance, so I stand out like a sore thumb.
Mhm.
So fitting in was always a bit of a challenge for me. And I mean, if you're like a if you're a person that likes to socialize, you really can sit down and put a book together. So it worked out for me well, anyways. So I have no regrets.
Cool, cool. How was your adaptation to Canada? How was your adaptation to like the Western world in totality? Well, did it come tough for you, or was it easy?
Um, I say there's some parts that are easy, like where I'm from, people are just obsessed with looking pretty, both guys and girls. It is insane. But here, I mean, I don't I don't really have to dress up to go to school or to the work. I like that where you can just be yourself. That part of the Western culture, I love it. But it's the longer I live in the Western society or Western world, like it feels like it's becoming more totalitarian, kind of like the region where I was from. Like,
Yes.
so that's something that's really concerning me.
Yeah, with the whole cancel culture and stuff. Yeah, we're gonna get into all of that because I when I went to visit, well, with us corresponding, I already knew that you were an extremely interesting person. And then I looked into your books and I was like, wow, first of all, I was glad to see that someone from Canada is not afraid to be speaking out because we as Ukrainians, we know the diaspora, the Ukrainian diaspora in Canada, man, and they can get pretty nuts. So I respected that about you. And the reason why I'm asking you all these questions is we usually like to, the show is called Prove to Me That You're Alive. So we usually like to see the human being before we see the author or the activist or, or anything else. So I really appreciate that. So what inspired you to write Canada Lost: Symptoms of a Dying Nation? And if you could tell us a little bit about the process, when did it come out? And but yeah, mainly what inspired you to write that book?
The inspiration came from my experience in the Eastern Canada, part of Ontario, particularly. And I went there almost immediately after Trudeau became prime minister. So there was a lot of euphoria. And for the first couple months, like when I got first of all, I went there to do to get a graduate degree, master's to be exact. And there was this euphoria going on. Trudeau just became the prime minister. He's gonna make Canada great. And after 2 months, I started questioning things because I started to see these little signs here and there that Canada is becoming a totalitarian country. The one example that I remember back in it was 2016. 2016, I think it was in September, Chinese prime minister, he came to visit Canada, and at the hotel they put up these like wooden board. So well, because the have you heard about the group called Falun Gong?
Yeah.
The yeah, basically the Chinese diaspora was protesting against the Chinese Communist Party. They put up a board at the front of the lobby so that he doesn't have to interact with the protesters. And that's a straight up, that's like totalitarianism 101, if you ask me. I've seen the same thing happening in my mother country. And and I get to know about the Trudeau's, and he was a huge communist sympathizer, like his father, I mean. And also, there's a conspiracy theory spinning around in the web that Justin Trudeau's father is not Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the former prime minister, but Fidel Castro. I mean, they sure do look alike,
Mhm.
but I can't confirm or verify, unfortunately. Not unless someone shows me a DNA test or something. I won't go down that path now, man.
Mhm.
But yeah, so and and one thing that's really not mentioned about Canada is province Quebec. That's the French-speaking region of Canada. And if you actually dig deeper into their history, they've always had an agenda that's constructing the best interest of Canada for decades. Actually goes beyond decades, goes over centuries.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, French Canada, they always had these grievances towards the English speaking Canada. And I get that the English, they're too, well, unfortunately, I gotta admit that they're too snobby and they offend everyone. And, but taking over a country uh, well, I gotta mention this one thing. What Pierre Elliott Trudeau did that pisses off the people in Western Canada.
Mhm.
So he introduced what's called equalization payment. Basically, it was an idea to have the wealthy provinces like Alberta, Saskatchewan, like they're resource rich, so they can help out the provinces that are less well off in the Maritimes.
Mhm.
But it actually became a way of stealing a much of Western Canada's wealth and bringing it to Quebec and Ontario, of course. And I, and they and they're kind of like the Ukrainian nationalists who are very pro about making Ukrainian language the only language in Ukraine.
Mhm.
And they did it. They're doing it under the mask of bilingualism. So if you want to be a public servant, for example, pretty much mandatory that you have to be fluent in both English and French.
Nice. Mhm.
But here's the caveat: if you don't have a francophone last name, it gets very tough to get a decent position in the government. Or you
Mhm.
can get like a lower level of a civil servant position, but if you want to move up the ladder, that actually comes into play.
I see.
So it's basically what I call like a reverse racism.
Mhm. So yeah, there's a lot of inner workings in Canada. It's cool to hear because yeah, as we know, Quebec has always been a French region. I even heard that someone that is a native English speaker that would come from America to Quebec, sometimes they would get dirty looks. So if it's it's funny because if you ever been to France, it's the same thing. In France, they don't like Americans too much, man.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean they have their I think personally, in my opinion, Frenches are the only people that can surpass English in the Olympic of arrogance or self
mhm,
pride.
that's for sure. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I wanted to ask, how has Canada been changing, or how have you seen it change from opposed to when you were a kid to what it is now? And was it a gradual change? Was it a sudden change? And where did it come from, and where is it heading? If you could say, like, the change of Canada.
Oh wow, that's a very very. Well, where do I start? So it's not a fast, sudden, like shock therapy kind of change, but it's been done gradually, like one step at a time. And I'm just going to give you one example. So when I was like 18, 19 years old, I went to a gun show, and it's like a place where you can express freedom like better than anywhere else. They have like display like hundreds and thousands of guns on display. And fast forward to 2024, we can't buy AR-15s. You can't buy handguns, and so the amount of freedom or the rights that you have it's diminishing year by year. And obviously they don't try to do everything at once, but they're doing it one at a time.
Mhm.
So like this year, so in 2020, they banned the sales of AR-15s or the variants, and when was it? Like a couple of years later, they made it illegal to buy or sell handguns legally. So you see, like it doesn't happen everything doesn't happen all at once, but happens one at a time. So we're
Does
like
it
a kind of has like a boiling frog syndrome.
Does it depend on the province? Like, is it like in the states that goes by the state, or is it nationwide when these laws come in effect?
It's pretty much nationwide. I know the regions that are conservative,
Mhm.
like Alberta especially, they're fighting it, but federal government it seems to have so much power in Canada, even more so than the United States. So I'm not really sure how that's gonna work out.
Mhm. Is Canada safe overall? Like, it's not like America, right? It's not like that major cities are, overrun by, drug addicts and gangs and stuff like that. Canada's different in that regard, right?
Canada generally is much safer, but you're seeing the same kind of decay that's happening in, especially in the major cities. We do have our own heroin alleys and addicts like living on the street, and there's like areas where there's people put a bunch of tents. You do see that from here and there, but I wouldn't say it's as bad as the United States. No, not yet. But we're kind of heading down the path, which
Yeah.
worries me.
One thing to remember that Canada is has multitudes of less population than than United States. So I guess that's one thing that's saving you guys a little bit, because obviously the more of the population, the more of these issues are gonna arise. Um, I wanted to ask you. I want to take a little left turn, maybe, but it still pertains to Canada. And then we're gonna get into the to your next book. But what are all these stories with bestiality being legal in Canada, and if a child wants to transition from a boy to a girl, the parents legally have to oblige to helping the kid? Like, what are all these stories? Are these true stories, or they're just nonsense?
It is definitely true. Uh, in fact, I do remember a story from British Columbia. So this one father with his a daughter, and she wanted to get a transgender surgery or treatment or whatever it's called, and it was actually one of the like the I don't remember if it was a teacher or like a counselor that's supposed to be helping students. She was actually encouraging that girl to go through this therapy, and obviously her father is a thankfully he's a normal person, so he was not going to have any of this, and he's trying to stop her from getting this therapy, but the court came down on him really hard, the provincial court, and they even banned him from talking to media or speaking out about it. Eventually, I think he won, so that's a good thing. But they're trying to like just destroy him and his daughter's life.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. How do you, because you're a very intellectually aware and smart person. How do you feel about these things, about this whole uh gender thing that's going on in America and Canada? Like, everybody, all these him and hers and it and like all of these. How do you feel about this whole thing?
Well, that's a well the well what I'm gonna say that one of my mentor he said there's positive in everything, but you have to see it. And the positive thing is that as long as this thing goes around, I'm just gonna stay single, never gonna produce a child because I don't want them to go through any of this. And
Ooh,
personally, if you ask me, this is like I don't know if you ever watched the movie Mel Gibson's Apocalypto. The
yeah,
movie, yeah,
wonderful movie, great
it's
movie, man.
yeah, it's like you're spending like so much energy and you're part of your wealth to raise a child, only to give up to a human sacrifice. That's how I see it.
Mhm. Wow, that's crazy. That's wow. That is a quote, man. That is a quote. I'm definitely gonna remember that one. Just to put it out there, as some of you may know, recently I had a famous transsexual on Prove to Me That You're Alive, Buck Angel. So this is to say that me personally, I don't judge people. I just one thing that I'm seeing is that it's being imposed on us, first of all, and second of all, If you're an adult, do whatever the hell you want. Don't touch the kids, man. Stop touching the kids. Stop making this a big media thing, because this is exactly how the nucleus family is falling apart, man. This is how they're attacking the men, attacking the children. So I just wanted to put it out there, man.